Maya Chen sat in the back corner of Advanced Xenobiology, her worn notebook open to a page filled with neat, precise handwriting. While her classmates at the Galactic Institute of Technology argued loudly about theoretical applications of cross-species genetic therapy, she remained silent, occasionally glancing up from her notes with dark, watchful eyes. The classroom buzzed with the typical mix of species that made GIT famous across the galaxy. Tall, crystalline Zilari students clicked their thoughts in harmonious frequencies, while the furry Corvan delegation gestured wildly with their forearms during heated debates. The insectoid Thrix representatives maintained their usual stoic silence, compound eyes reflecting the holographic displays dancing above each desk. "Miss Chen," Professor Valdris called out, his blue-scaled Aquarian features shifting into what humans had learned to recognize as mild irritation. "Perhaps you'd like to share your thoughts on the ethical implications of forced evolutionary adaptation in conquered species?" Every head in the classroom turned toward Maya. She was unremarkable by most standards. Average height, dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing the same faded jacket she'd worn every day for 3 months. Her human classmates had long since dismissed her as another scholarship student trying to blend into the background. "I think," Maya said quietly, her voice barely carrying across the room, "that any species forced to adapt against their will would eventually find ways to resist. Biology always finds a path to survival, even under the most hostile conditions." Zektar, a large Corvan student whose family controlled mining operations across 3 systems, chittered with amusement. "Spoken like a typical human. Always assuming resistance is possible. Some species are simply too weak to fight back effectively." Maya's fingers tightened slightly around her stylus, the only sign of her reaction. "Weakness is often a matter of perspective. What appears weak might simply be conserving energy." The comment drew a few scattered laughs from other students, but Professor Valdris nodded approvingly. "An interesting point. Historical records do show numerous examples of supposedly inferior species mounting successful resistance movements against overwhelming odds." As the professor launched into a detailed analysis of the Corvan-Thrix conflicts of the previous century, Maya returned to her notes. She wrote steadily, but her handwriting had changed subtly. Where before her letters had been careful and controlled, now they carried the efficient precision of someone accustomed to writing quick reports under pressure. After class, Maya gathered her materials slowly, waiting for the room to empty. She had learned that timing was everything. Leave too early and draw attention. Leave too late, and someone might try to engage her in conversation. She had perfected the art of being forgettable. "Maya, wait up." She suppressed a sigh as Jenna Morrison, her assigned human study partner, hurried to catch up. Jenna was everything Maya wasn't. Outgoing, enthusiastic, and completely convinced that her friendship could draw Maya out of her shell. "That was brilliant what you said about resistance," Jenna continued as they walked down the gleaming corridors of the Institute. "You always seem to know things that aren't in the textbooks. Where do you get your insights from?" "I read a lot," Maya replied. Which was technically true. She just didn't mention that much of her reading consisted of classified military reports and tactical analyses that most civilians would never see. "Well, whatever you're reading, keep it up." Professor Valdris looked impressed. "And he's impossible to please." Jenna paused at the intersection where their paths diverged. "Hey, a bunch of us are going to the Nexus tonight for dinner. You should come. The Zilari students promised to show us how they prepare traditional crystal fruits." Maya almost smiled at the genuine invitation. In another life, she might have enjoyed an evening of cross-cultural dining and student gossip. "Thanks, but I have research to catch up on." "You always have research to catch up on," Jenna said with good-natured frustration. "When was the last time you did something just for fun?" The question caught Maya off guard. When was the last time she'd done something for fun? Before the siege of Kepler Station? Before the evacuation of the Outer Rim colonies? The memories threatened to surface, and she pushed them down with practiced ease. "I'll think about it," she said instead, which they both knew meant no. After Jenna left, Maya made her way to her small dormitory room in the graduate housing complex. The space was spartanly furnished: a narrow bed, a desk, a chair, and a small storage unit that contained exactly 3 changes of clothes and a handful of personal items that could fit in a single backpack. She sat at her desk and opened her personal tablet, entering a complex series of passwords that would have impressed the Institute's cybersecurity professors. The screen flickered to life, displaying a secure communication interface that definitely wasn't standard student equipment. 3 new messages waited for her, all marked with priority classifications that made her stomach tighten. She opened the first one. From Colonel Harrison, of Earth Defense Command. Agent Chen, your extraction window is closing. Intelligence suggests Covenant forces may have identified your current location. Recommend immediate extraction to safe house coordinates attached. Your mission parameters remain unchanged, but your cover may be compromised. Maya stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. She had worked too hard to establish her identity as a quiet graduate student to abandon it now. Besides, she was close to completing her real mission, identifying which faculty members at the Institute were secretly providing research to the Covenant Alliance. The second message was from her handler in military intelligence, confirming what she already suspected. Professor Valdres had been making encrypted transmissions to coordinates in Covenant space. His research on forced evolutionary adaptation wasn't just theoretical. It was being used to develop biological weapons designed specifically to target human physiology. The third message made her blood run cold. It was brief, just a few lines, but the implications were staggering. Multiple Covenant battle groups detected moving toward Sol system. Estimated arrival, 72 hours. All deep cover assets ordered to maintain positions and gather intelligence on enemy capabilities. This may be humanity's last stand. Maya closed the tablet and sat back in her chair. 72 hours. After 3 years of careful infiltration, 3 years of playing the role of an unremarkable student, she had 72 hours to complete her mission and somehow get critical intelligence back to Earth Defense Command. She looked around her tiny room, at the life she had built here. It wasn't much, but it had been peaceful. For the first time since the war began, she had almost felt normal. A soft chime from her tablet interrupted her thoughts. Another message, this one from Jenna. Changed my mind about dinner, bringing takeout to your room in 20 minutes. Despite everything, Maya found herself smiling. Jenna's relentless friendliness had been one of the few bright spots in her carefully constructed cover identity. In 72 hours, that friendship might be just another casualty of war. She opened her tablet again and began typing a detailed report on Professor Valdres's activities. If the Covenant was coming, Earth needed every advantage it could get. And Maya Chen, quiet graduate student, was about to remind them why humans had earned their reputation as the most dangerous species in the galaxy when backed into a corner. The knock on her door came exactly 20 minutes later. Maya saved her work, secured her tablet, and went to answer it. For now, she could spare a few hours to be normal. Tomorrow, she would have to become something else entirely. I brought Terran noodles and Corvan spice bread, Jenna announced, holding up several containers. I figured if we're going to study xenobiology, we might as well eat xenologically too. Maya stepped aside to let her in, noting automatically the sightlines down the corridor, the potential exit routes, the acoustic properties that would carry sound. Old habits died hard. That's very thoughtful, she said, and meant it. Thank you. As Jenna bustled about setting up their impromptu dinner on Maya's small desk, chattering about her day and the latest campus gossip, Maya allowed herself to relax slightly. Whatever came next, whatever she would have to do when the Covenant arrived, she could give herself this one evening of normal human interaction. She had no way of knowing that across the galaxy, Covenant intelligence was already analyzing intercepted communications from the Institute, or that her name had appeared on a priority target list, or that Professor Valdres had begun to suspect that his quiet student knew far more about military applications of xenobiology than any civilian should. The storm was coming, and Maya Chen was about to discover that sometimes the greatest danger came not from maintaining your cover, but from the moment when you finally had to abandon it. The alarm started at 0347 hours, a piercing wail that cut through the peaceful quiet of the dormitory complex. Maya was awake instantly, her body responding to the sound with reflexes honed by years of combat experience. While other students stumbled from their beds in confusion, she was already moving, pulling on clothes, and assessing the situation. Emergency lighting bathed the corridors in red as students emerged from their rooms, many still in sleep clothes. Voices raised in a dozen different languages and dialects. The automated announcement system crackled to life in standard galactic, All students report to designated emergency shelters. This is not a drill. Covenant forces have been detected at the system perimeter. Estimated time to station contact, 14 hours. Maya's blood turned to ice. 14 hours. They had accelerated their timeline. Maya. Jenna appeared at her door, eyes wide with fear. What's happening? I thought the war was light years away from here. Apparently not, Maya replied, surprising herself with how calm she sounded. Around them, other students were panicking, some crying, others shouting into communication devices trying to reach family members across the galaxy. Professor Valdris emerged from the faculty quarters at the end of the corridor, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. His eyes swept over the crowd of students, and Maya noticed the way his gaze lingered on her for just a moment too long. Something cold and calculating flickered in his expression before he adopted a mask of concerned authority. "Students, please maintain order," he announced, his amplified voice carrying over the chaos. "Emergency protocols are in effect. Report to your assigned shelters immediately. Faculty will coordinate with station defense to ensure your safety." Maya watched him carefully as he spoke, noting the way his fingers drummed against his communication tablet. She had seen that gesture before. During his lectures when he was working through a complex problem, he was planning something. As the crowd began to move toward the shelter areas, Maya hung back, pretending to search for something in her room. Valdris waited until most of the students had passed, then moved in the opposite direction, toward the restricted faculty areas. "Maya." "Come on," Jenna called from down the corridor. "We need to get to the shelters." "Go ahead," Maya replied. "I forgot my emergency kit." "I'll catch up." It was a weak excuse, but Jenna was too frightened to argue. As soon as the corridor emptied, Maya slipped out of her room and followed the professor, keeping to the shadows and using every stealth technique she had learned during her special operations training. The faculty section was a maze of research laboratories and administrative offices. Maya moved silently through the darkened corridors, following the faint sound of Valdris's footsteps. He stopped at a laboratory marked Restricted Access, Biological Research Level 5. Maya positioned herself where she could observe through a gap in the doorframe as Valdris entered his private lab. The space was filled with equipment she recognized from her xenobiology classes, but arranged in configurations that suggested purposes far beyond academic research. Valdris moved to a secured terminal and began inputting commands with the practiced efficiency of someone performing a familiar routine. Data streams flickered across multiple screens, and Maya caught fragments of what appeared to be biological schematics, genetic sequences, and tactical deployment maps. Her enhanced contact lenses, a gift from military intelligence, automatically began recording everything she could see. The technology was undetectable to standard security scans, but it allowed her to capture high-resolution images and audio for later analysis. "Yes, I understand the timeline has accelerated," Valdris was saying into his communication device, speaking in a dialect of Korvan that he probably assumed no human could understand. Maya's linguistic training proved him wrong. "The human specimens will be delivered as promised. My research on their immune system vulnerabilities is complete. The biological weapon will be deployed during the initial assault phase." Maya's hands clenched into fists. "Specimens." He was talking about the human students at the Institute as specimens. "There is one complication," Valdris continued. "I suspect one of the human students may not be what she appears. Her responses in class suggest knowledge of military applications that no civilian should possess. Should I investigate further?" The voice on the other end was too quiet for Maya to hear, but Valdris nodded. "Understood. I will handle the situation personally." Maya had heard enough. She began to back away from the laboratory, but her foot caught a loose piece of equipment that someone had left in the corridor. The metallic clang echoed through the space like a gunshot. Valdris's voice cut off immediately. Maya heard movement inside the laboratory, rapid footsteps approaching the door. She pressed herself against the wall, hoping the emergency lighting would provide enough shadows to conceal her. But knowing it was too late, the door slid open and Valdris stepped into the corridor, his compound eyes scanning the space with predatory intensity. In his hand was a weapon that Maya recognized as Thrick's design, a neural disruptor that could incapacitate most species without permanent damage. "I know you're there," he said softly, his voice carrying the artificial calm of someone completely in control of the situation. "There's nowhere to run. This section is sealed during emergency protocols." Maya weighed her options quickly. The corridor offered no cover, and Valdris was positioned between her and the exit. Her only advantages were her combat training and the element of surprise. He still thought of her as just a student. Maya Chen, Valdris continued, taking a step forward. Or should I say, Major Maya Chen, Earth Defense Special Operations? Yes, I've known who you were for weeks. Did you really think your presence here would go unnoticed forever? Maya stepped out of the shadows, her posture shifting subtly from that of a frightened student to something altogether more dangerous. Professor Valdris. Or should I say, Covenant Intelligence Operative 7 Alpha 9. His eyes widened slightly. He hadn't expected her to know his real identity. Very good, he said, raising his weapon. I admit, I underestimated human intelligence capabilities. It won't happen again. No. Maya agreed, her voice cold. It won't. She moved faster than Valdris had thought possible for a human. Her first strike knocked the weapon from his hand. Her second sent him stumbling backward into the laboratory. By the time he recovered his balance, she was standing between him and the exit, and her entire demeanor had transformed. This wasn't the quiet student who sat in the back of his classroom. This was someone who had fought in the siege of Kepler Station, who had held the line during the evacuation of the Outer Rim colonies, who had earned field promotions through actions that were still classified at the highest levels of Earth Defense Command. You made a mistake, Maya said, advancing into the laboratory. You called us specimens. Valdris reached for another weapon, but Maya was already moving. Her hand closed around his wrist with crushing force, and he cried out in pain as the device clattered to the floor. That's what every enemy of humanity has done, she continued, applying pressure to a nerve cluster that sent Valdris to his knees. You see us as just another species to be catalogued and exploited. You study our biology like we're insects under a microscope. She leaned down so her face was level with his. But you never study the most important thing about humans. We don't just survive. We adapt. We improvise. We overcome. And when someone threatens what we care about, we become something that makes every other species in the galaxy check their locks at night. Valdris tried to speak, but Maya's grip on his nerve cluster made coherent thought difficult. Around them, his laboratory equipment hummed with the sound of ongoing experiments. Biological samples, suspended in tanks that glowed with sickly light. These are the human specimens you were planning to hand over? Maya asked, nodding toward a series of containment units. Students from my own species that you've been collecting genetic data from? She released her grip slightly, allowing him to nod weakly. Here's what's going to happen, Maya said, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to giving orders in life or death situations. You're going to transfer all your research data to me, every file, every genetic sequence, every tactical plan you've shared with your Covenant handlers. I can't, Valdris gasped. They'll kill me. Maya's smile was cold enough to freeze helium. Professor, you seem to be confused about your situation. The Covenant isn't here yet. But I am. And right now, I'm the most dangerous thing in this laboratory. To emphasize her point, she applied pressure to another nerve cluster, one that controlled his breathing. Valdris's eyes widened in genuine terror as he realized that the quiet human student he had dismissed was perfectly capable of killing him with her bare hands. Choose quickly, Maya advised. Transfer the data, or explain to the Covenant why their biological weapons program just went dark. Valdris looked into her eyes and saw something that made his blood run cold. This human wasn't bluffing. She had the cold, professional demeanor of someone who had killed before, and would do it again if necessary. With shaking hands, he reached for his terminal interface. The transfer codes are in my personal files, he stammered. It will take a few minutes to compile everything. You have 2 minutes, Maya informed him. After that, I start assuming you're stalling. As Valdris worked frantically at his terminal, Maya allowed herself a moment to process what she had learned. The Covenant wasn't just planning a military assault on the Sol system. They were planning to deploy biological weapons, specifically designed to exploit human genetic vulnerabilities. Weapons developed using research conducted right here at the Galactic Institute of Technology, using data collected from unsuspecting human students. Her communicator buzzed softly. A message from Earth Defense Command, tagged with the highest priority classification. All deep cover assets, Covenant advanced scouts detected throughout the system. Maintain cover and continue intelligence gathering. Do not engage unless compromised. Extraction impossible at this time. Maya almost laughed at the irony. Don't engage unless compromised. Too late for that. Transfer complete, Valdris announced, his voice shaking. Everything is there: biological data, weapon specifications, deployment plans, communication protocols. Maya glanced at the terminal display, noting the volume of data being transferred to her secure storage device. Terabytes of information that could give Earth defense the intelligence they needed to counter the Covenant's biological weapons. Thank you for your cooperation, she said, then struck a precise point on Valdris's neck that sent him into unconsciousness. He would wake up in a few hours with a severe headache and no memory of the last 20 minutes. As she prepared to leave the laboratory, Maya caught sight of her reflection in one of the darkened windows. The frightened student was gone, replaced by someone harder, more dangerous, someone who had just reminded herself why humanity had earned its reputation as the most resourceful species in the galaxy. The station's alarm continued to wail as she made her way back toward the student shelters, carrying intelligence that could change the course of the war. But first, she had to figure out how to get the information to Earth Defense Command with Covenant forces closing in on the system. Maya Chen, quiet student, was about to discover that her most challenging mission was just beginning. The emergency shelter beneath the Galactic Institute of Technology buzzed with nervous energy, as nearly 3,000 students and faculty waited for news from the system's outer perimeter. Emergency rations had been distributed, and portable sleeping units lined the vast underground complex that had been designed to withstand orbital bombardment. Maya sat in a corner with Jenna and several other human students, her expression carefully neutral while her mind raced through tactical possibilities. The data storage device containing Valdris's research felt like it weighed a ton in her jacket pocket, though it was no larger than her thumb. "How long do you think we'll be down here?" asked Marcus Webb, a first-year student from the Luna colonies whose voice carried the shakiness of someone experiencing their first real crisis. "However long it takes," replied Dr. Sarah Kim, one of the human faculty members who had volunteered to help coordinate the shelter operations. "The station's defense grid is state-of-the-art. We should be safe here." Maya almost laughed at that. State-of-the-art defense grids were designed to repel conventional attacks, not the coordinated assault of a Covenant battle group equipped with humanity's own biological vulnerabilities. If Valdris's research was accurate, the station's automated systems would be useless against an enemy that could render the human defenders unconscious before they ever fired a shot. Her communicator vibrated with an incoming message, the frequency indicating it was from Earth Defense Command. She glanced around to make sure no one was watching, then checked the display. "Agent Chen. Covenant forces have engaged outer system defenses. Station assault imminent. Critical intelligence suggests biological weapon deployment planned for first wave. Confirm status and prepare for emergency extraction protocol, Omega-7. Maya's blood ran cold. Protocol Omega-7 was a last resort extraction method designed for deep cover agents who possessed intelligence too valuable to lose. It also had a 93% casualty rate for everyone in the immediate area. She typed back quickly. Intelligence obtained on biological weapons. Research data in hand. Station population includes 3,000 civilians. Request alternative extraction. The response came back within minutes. No alternatives available. Covenant bioweapons will render conventional defense impossible. Your intelligence is critical to Earth's survival. Prepare for extraction in 6 hours. 6 hours. Maya closed her communicator and looked around the shelter. 6 hours to figure out how to save 3,000 innocent people, while getting critical intelligence back to Earth Defense Command. "Maya?" Jenna's voice broke into her thoughts. "You look like you've seen a ghost. Are you okay?" Before Maya could answer, the shelter's communication system crackled to life with an announcement from Station Command. "Attention all shelter occupants. Covenant forces have breached the outer defense perimeter. Station defense protocols are now in effect. Maintain calm and remain in designated areas until the all-clear is given." The announcement was followed by the distant sound of explosions, muffled by layers of rock and metal but still audible enough to send a wave of fear through the assembled crowd. Several students began crying, and even some of the faculty looked shaken. Maya stood up, her mind made up. She couldn't save everyone with conventional methods, but there was another option. A dangerous one that would blow her cover completely, but might give these people a fighting chance. "Jenna," she said quietly, "I need you to listen very carefully. In about 5 minutes, I'm going to ask you to do something that will seem crazy. I need you to trust me and do exactly what I say." Jenna looked confused but nodded. Over the past months, she had learned to trust Maya's instincts about things. Maya made her way to the central communication terminal that Dr. Kim was using to coordinate with Station Command. The older woman looked up as she approached. "Maya, what can I do for you?" "Dr. Kim, I need to use the emergency broadcast system to address everyone in the shelter. I'm sorry, but that's restricted to faculty and emergency personnel only." Maya took a deep breath. What she was about to do would change everything. But these people deserved the truth about what they were facing. "Dr. Kim," she said, her voice carrying a new authority that made the professor look up sharply. "My name is Major Maya Chen, Earth Defense Special Operations. I am a military intelligence officer operating under deep cover, and I have information that could save everyone in this shelter." Dr. Kim's eyes widened in shock. Around them, conversations gradually died away as people noticed the exchange. That's impossible," Dr. Kim stammered. "You're a graduate student." Maya pulled out her military identification, a small device that projected her actual rank and service record when activated. The holographic display showed a decorated officer with commendations from battles across 3-star systems. "Holy shit," someone whispered from the crowd that had gathered around them. "The Covenant forces, approaching this station, are equipped with biological weapons specifically designed to target human physiology," Maya announced, her voice now carrying clearly across the shelter. "These weapons were developed using research conducted here at the Institute by a faculty member who is a Covenant intelligence operative." The crowd erupted in shocked voices, fear mixing with anger as the implications sank in. "Furthermore," Maya continued, "Earth Defense Command has scheduled an emergency extraction of critical intelligence that will likely result in significant casualties among station personnel." "What are you saying?" asked Dr. Kim, though her face suggested she already understood. "I'm saying that in 6 hours, my government is going to sacrifice this station, and everyone on it, to get me and my intelligence off-world. Unless we find another way." The shelter fell silent except for the continued sound of distant battle. Maya could see the fear and betrayal in the faces around her, but also something else: determination. Humans, she had learned over the years, responded to impossible odds not with surrender, but with stubborn defiance. "What do you need us to do?" asked Marcus Webb, the young student who had been terrified just minutes before now standing straighter with purpose in his voice. Maya smiled, recognizing the transformation she had seen 100 times before in combat situations. Humans were never more dangerous than when they had something to protect. "First, we need to access the station's main computer core. The biological weapon can only work if the Covenant can control the life support systems to deliver it. If we can override their access codes." "I can help with that," interrupted a Zalari student named Kritak. "My crystal form allows me to interface directly with quantum computer systems. And I know the maintenance tunnels," added Jenna. "I've been mapping them for my xenoarchitecture thesis. I can get a small team to the computer core without using the main corridors." Maya felt a familiar warmth in her chest, the feeling she always got when an impossible plan started coming together. "Dr. Kim, how many of the faculty here have security clearances for the restricted research levels?" "About 30 of us have access to various secure areas." "Good. I need teams accessing every biological research laboratory on the station." If Professor Valdris was working with the Covenant, there might be other compromised research that we can use against them. Over the next hour, Maya found herself doing something she had never done before: commanding a unit made up entirely of civilians. Students and faculty organized themselves into teams with a efficiency that would have impressed her military instructors. The Thrick students used their natural stealth capabilities to scout ahead, while the Corvin students provided muscle for moving heavy equipment. But it was the humans who surprised her the most. Faced with impossible odds and certain death, they had responded not with panic but with the kind of innovative problem-solving that had made their species legendary across the galaxy. "Major Chen," Dr. Kim approached her as the teams prepared to leave the shelter. "I have to ask, if you're really military intelligence, why are you helping us? Wouldn't your mission take priority?" Maya thought about the question for a moment. 3 years ago, she would have followed her extraction orders without hesitation. The needs of the many outweighed the needs of the few, and her intelligence could save billions of human lives across the galaxy. But 3 years of living among these people, of seeing Jenna's kindness and Marcus's courage and Dr. Kim's dedication to her students had changed something fundamental about how she viewed her mission. Because, she said finally, the best intelligence in the galaxy is worthless if we lose who we are in the process of gathering it. These people trusted me, even when I was lying to them. Now it's time for me to trust them. The first team left the shelter through maintenance tunnels that Jenna had mapped, heading for the computer core. Maya watched them go, knowing that she had just made a decision that would either save 3,000 lives or doom them all. Her communicator buzzed again. Another message from Earth Defense Command. Agent Chen, Covenant bioweapon deployment confirmed. Extraction, team inbound. Prepare for immediate evacuation. Maya looked around the shelter at the people organizing themselves into teams, preparing to fight against impossible odds with nothing but their intelligence and determination. Then she typed back a message that she knew would probably end her military career. Earth Defense Command. Extraction cancelled. Will transmit intelligence via quantum burst when secure. Station personnel are not expendable. Chen out. She turned off the communicator and picked up the improvised weapon that the Corvan students had assembled from laboratory equipment. In 6 hours, when the Covenant assault began, they would discover what every enemy of humanity eventually learned. Humans were never more dangerous than when someone they cared about was threatened, and Maya Chen had just remembered why she had joined the fight in the first place. Not to save humanity in abstract, but to save actual humans with names and faces and dreams. The quiet student was gone forever, replaced by someone who understood that the most important battles weren't always the ones in the history books, but the ones fought for the people standing beside you. As the first reports came in from her teams across the station, Maya smiled grimly. The Covenant was about to get a very unpleasant reminder of why humans had earned their reputation as the most stubborn species in the galaxy. The battle for the Galactic Institute of Technology was about to begin, and humanity was going to show the galaxy once again that they never went down without a fight.